Hey guys, Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions. So, today we're going to get into the best portable headphone amps and DACs. And let's get right into it. So, what is an amp DAC? Now, most people, they fling around these words all willy-nilly, but we're going to break it down. So, just in case you don't know, an amp is just an amp. So, it's an amplifier without an internal DAC. What is a DAC? A DAC is a digital to analog converter, converting the digital ones and zeros into the analog sound that your ears hear. It's sweet, sweet goodness. Whew. An amp DAC is two combined into one, so this is what I personally prefer, but your mileage may vary. A DAC is simply a digital analog converter. I tend to think some people carelessly call an amp DAC a DAC out of habit, but not all DACs are amp DACs. Some are just DACs. Yo dog, I heard you like amp DACs, so we put two DACs inside your amp DAC and stacked that amp DAC onto another DAC amp and paired it up to another amp DAC, making 3 amp DACs plus an additional DAC. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the criteria of how you should go about purchasing an amp DAC or an amp or just a DAC. So, power output. Number one, it's important to know how much power is supplied into various impedance loads. If you have a 300 ohm headphone like the HA600, you'll want to make sure to purchase an amp that outputs enough power into that load. So I think generally speaking, power output is most important when deciding, because you want to make sure that it pairs well with whatever headphone you're using. Most amp DACs and amps will provide enough power. Some don't, but some are deceptively powerful in that you wouldn't think that they could drive a certain headphone, but they end up sounding just fine. For instance, an HD600 requires around 20 milliwatts from an amp, but you can get away with using something like an E10K or a K3 even. And keep in mind the K3 is actually a little bit underpowered, and I was still surprised to find that with the gain on, I'm reaching a fairly loud level. I mean, there's not much headroom, granted, but I find that it's about the perfect volume and just about the ceiling of a comfortable level. Like anything high, like if I had to turn the volume up any higher, it wouldn't be ideal. So yeah, the second thing we're going to be looking for is features. So do you need some extra features with your purchase? Some people don't like the Dragonfly, for instance, because it doesn't have any onboard features. A unit like the K3 or the E10K do provide bass boost and gain, as well as the Q1 also provides this. Thirdly, phone compatibility. Do you intend to use it with your phone? If so, you'll want a combo amp DAC, since there's only one piece of equipment to worry about. Buying an amp DAC separately makes for a much more difficult time and something that you obviously wouldn't do. So fourth, versatility. Many of these amps and DACs have the ability to be used in more than one scenario. The E10K is a great example, and we'll discuss that in a bit. Are you looking for something bare bones or more flexible? This will help in deciding what you ultimately go with. So yeah, portability doesn't necessarily mean strictly on the go. So I actually looked up the definition of portable. It means able to be easily carried or moved, especially because being of a lighter and smaller version than usual. Synonyms are transportable, movable, mobile, transferable, easily carried, and easy to carry. So without further ado, what do I recommend? And I will break this down into just amps, amp DACs, in the entry-level, mid-tier, and high-end categories. So first up is the Flyout A3. Now you can get this for around 50 bucks. It's just an amp, so it does come with a 3.5mm interconnect, which you can easily hook up with your phone or a laptop. Really, really great sound. I mean, it's similar to an E10K, and actually sounds, to me, less grainy than an E10K. And I've mentioned this in a lot of my articles and videos, that the E10K on its own doesn't sound grainy, but when you pit it up against other amps and DACs, you can tell it does have an ever so slight amount of grain to it. But I did notice that the A3 is super clean and neutral for even less money than an E10K. So as an entry-level amp DAC, if you don't want to spend too much money or you're just getting your feet wet, the A3 is the perfect solution. Now obviously you can also use this with a separate DAC. I was using it, like I said, out of my phone, paired up with my laptop's internal sound card or DAC. Also, I use the E10K as a DAC, so very versatile. Now, starting things out in the entry-level amp DAC category, we have the Flyout Q1 Mark II. Now, you guys know I dogged this unit quite a bit when I first reviewed it because of the perceived lack of power, but as I said in the open, it has more than you would think I was able to run it with a HG600 and 650 with no problems, and I was pretty surprised by that, given that it only outputs 7 milliwatts into 300 ohms. So I tend to think that sometimes power output specs on amps are a bit, I wouldn't say overrated, but you can't solely rely on the numbers sometimes. You have to pair it up and see how it sounds. And for me, the Q1 got plenty loud enough with an HG600, and I really love this amp DAC because it comes with so many different options. You got a short 3.5 millimeter interconnect, a short 2.5 millimeter interconnect for the balance jack, an Apple Lightning cable for your iPhone, a standard micro USB cable for your PC, 4 rubber bands, a high quality soft mesh carrying bag, and a partridge in a pear tree. This is primarily a device meant to be used with Apple, but I paired it just fine with my Android via 3.5 millimeter interconnect, and I took it to the beach in January of 2019, and I paired up with a Tin Audio T2, and I really enjoyed it. I've also used it at my desktop, at my desk, so it's just a really versatile unit, and its sound is a little bit different from an E10K and a A3 in that it's a little warmer. It has a warmer tilt, a lot smoother and more musical, which also makes a great pairing with the 650 and 600. The only complaints I had were the bass boost and the gain switch are both good, but they're a little bit small and they're on the back. So if you're listening at night, it makes it kind of irritating to have to go back there and switch it on with your finger, because sometimes you have to use your fingernail, and it's a little bit more cumbersome than I would like, but overall minor nitpick. So the Q1 has definitely grown on me over the last few months, and highly recommended. Next up, of course, this has turned into a FIO sausage fest. We have the K3. Now, I reviewed the E10K. I did a comparison of the K3 and E10K. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link down below. But the K3 is an upgrade to the E10K in nearly every regard except for power output. It does output less. Of course, out of the balanced jack, you're getting more. But in every other way, it's an easy upgrade and an easy recommendation over the E10K. Now, it does run off bus power, and technically you can use it with your phone with an adapter, but depending on the model of your phone, you may just end up with a dead battery. So, highly recommended for desktop use only. Like the E10K, the K3 does have a bass boost and a gain switch, but this time they're on the front, which makes it a lot easier to adjust. Now, the E10K had those little sticks for the adjustments, which were really easy to flick, but the gain was on the back, and it was a little bit more annoying to switch on and off because you didn't really know if it was on or off. Not really a big deal, but I do enjoy the bass and gain on the front this time around. Some of the basic differences are that the K3 now supports DSD. When you turn it on, it has 3 different LED modes. Blue is 44.1, yellow is anything over 44.1, and green is DSD. So it does support DSD. It does have a balanced 2.5mm jack, and on the back we have the same coax and line out, but there's also optical out. Now, when I first got the unit, I didn't realize it was optical out, and I tried to use it with my PlayStation and it didn't work, and I was super disappointed because it wasn't an optical input. So I guess it's not really too big of a deal because you can output it to anything else you want, any other types of device that support optical in. So next up on the docket, we have the IFI XCAN, which is, I would consider, an upgrade from the A3 that we talked about. Now this little baby is amazing, very user intuitive. It's a Bluetooth amp. There is a DAC chip inside, but it's only used for the conversion of the Bluetooth signal. On its own as a desktop device, it's only an amp, but you can plug it in, you can hook it up to your PC's internal DAC, sound card, whatever, or you can pair it up with any DAC if you're choosing via 3.5mm interconnect. Very versatile, great as a desktop amp or use with your phone. I really love it with my phone, wireless, so I don't even have to worry about like wires and stuff like that. It's just a really great combination. So just press and hold the big button in the middle until it turns on, and then wait. When it cycles to blue, let go. Now if you want it to use it wired, wait till it turns green, then let go. So really user friendly. The sound of this thing it's crisp with a hint of warm, so just sounds amazing with anything you pair it with. Has a lot of different features, so it has the X Bass 2, and as well as the soundstage enhancer, which I found works wonderfully well with an HD600. It kind of opens up the 600's narrow image and makes it sound absolutely sublime with jazz specifically. And if you know anything about the 600s, they don't sound that great. They don't sound that great with jazz on their own, but with this amp, using the soundstage enhancer, they sound marvelous. Now, the XCAN also has a newer feature called the X-Bass 2 section on the back, which adds just bass, just presence, or both. This is one of the most versatile units in being able to tinker with the sound and get what you want. I find that as an amp, there's not much else I would ever need. This unit runs about 400 bucks, so a little bit steep on the price point, but you're not going to be wanting to upgrade after you get one of these. Now, as a mid-tier amp DAC, you know what I'm about to talk about is the AudioQuest Dragonfly Red.
And you know this, man!
Perfect little USB flash drive unit that outputs 2.1 volts of power and pairs with 99% of headphones, which is a dream considering how small it is. Runs around $200. AudioQuest has since come out with the Cobalt. I have not gotten a chance to demo it yet. I'll update the article when I receive one of the units. Really crisp sound, but maybe a hint of warm, and I've noticed that in switching to a Dragonfly Red from those amps and DACs, you'll notice that the soundstage is a little bit better. Now, it's not a monumentally big difference, but it is noticeable, but it's very subtle. But I just noticed that listening with headphones through this thing, the sound is more clear, a little bit more clear, and a little bit more expansive. It doesn't have any onboard features, obviously. You just plug it into your laptop and go. You can get the adapter as well for your phone. The amp DAC itself supports up to 24-bit 96K resolution and cycles between green for 44.1, blue for 48, amber for 88.2, and magenta is 96K. So highly recommended with Tidal because it's master quality authenticated. So any master tracks inside of Tidal will work great with this unit. So next up we have the XD SD, which is another great offering from IFI. This time as an amp DAC combo and also with Bluetooth capability as long as your phone supports aptX. Most do. I would liken the sound... Well, he's really going to town.
You're pretty good. Just what I'd expect from the man with the same code as the boss.
I would liken the sound coming out of it to something like a Chord Mojo, but maybe a tad more clinical and less warm. So similar to the XCAN sound, of course the XCAN has to be paired up with a separate DAC, but still I didn't really notice that big of a difference between that and the amp DAC of the XD SD. This puppy is packed with power and has loads of features. The one thing that stood out to me was how easy it was to hook up with my console. I literally just plugged the big blue cable from the unit into the PS4, plugged an optical cable into the back of the SPDIF jack, which has an optical adapter. So you basically plug in the optical adapter into the SPDIF and then plug the cable into that. And I fired up my PlayStation and turned on the TV, and sound was literally coming through my ears without me having to do anything. Normally I have to go into the settings of the PS4 and tinker with some stuff to get sound to come out. And I was astonished that I didn't have to do any of that with the XD SD. So highly recommended for gaming, console gaming, as well as music listening on the go or at your desktop. So love IFI as a company, and I cannot recommend their products enough. Next up is the Oppo HA2. Now keep in mind the HA2 is discontinued, but I still think this is a relevant product if you can get it for $350 or under. Do not spend any more than $350 for this unit. There are some companies trying to sell this for more. You don't even know if you're gonna get a legit unit. So I'd be wary. Definitely check eBay, but this thing is like the Swiss Army knife of amps and DACs. It has a warmish sound, not quite as much power as some of our other options. I think just makes the cut for something like an HD600. It provides, I think, 30 milliwatts in the 300 ohms, and the HD600 required 20. Interestingly enough, I remember it not having a whole heap of headroom. I was using the gain more often than not, I would say, but it provides an incredible sound. The bass boost is just marvelous. When you turn on the gain, it has this feature where it doesn't immediately blast the music. So if you had the volume turned up too high, it's not going to destroy your eardrums. It starts off at a low level and gradually comes up, which I really appreciated, and it's something that's just invaluable to have on an amp DAC. It's also got a plethora of different connections. It can be used with an Apple or Android, with your PC via USB, as a DAC via the line out, and that same jack functions as a 3.5mm audio in as well. So just a lot of different options. It's got the ABC configuration. A little bit confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's fairly simple. So last on the list, you know what I'm about to say. The Chord Mojo is the second best, or tied for the first best sound that I've ever heard out of an amp. The other being the Bryson BHA1, which is a mammoth desktop amp, so obviously not in this category today. The sound of the Mojo is it was just incredible. Definitely a step up from some of the lower priced models, and you guys know me, I talk about the law of diminishing returns a lot. I found that out of the 25 plus amps and DACs that I've heard, the Mojo was a true upgrade from some of the lower priced stuff, and competes with stuff way out of his price range as well. For instance, the Hugo 2 just did not sound as good. I mean, it sounded good. It was extremely crisp and clear sounding, but it lacked a certain warmth. It just sounded almost too cold. And Vlad from Verge talked about this in his article, and I wholeheartedly agree with him on that, because I felt like the Mojo, at a fraction of the price, performed just as well, if not better, because it has a hint of warmth to it. So it has this warmish tilt, but sounds so incredibly intimate that you wouldn't even believe it. Like, I felt almost like the vocalist was singing directly in front of me. It was just that realistic sounding, but not cold or sterile. It was incredibly detailed and clear. Instrument timbre, oh my god, it was like the attack of the instruments, and the sustain and the decay, especially the decay of instruments and vocals, like the way a voice trails off. It was just unmatched in my opinion. In amps and DACs that I've heard compared to this one, it was really no contest. Now the unit does run hot, that's a problem. Also, it doesn't hold a charge for as long as I would like. I find it just going dead, similar to an XCAN. So in that regard, I don't like that about wireless and amps and DACs that have internal batteries. I'm the type of person, I mostly sit at my desktop and listen and don't really worry about that type of stuff. But when I am listening portably, it is kind of a hassle. Yeah, that was about the best experience I've ever had, was with the Mr. Speaker's Ion Flow closed, paired with the Mojo, listening to, it was either On Again by Honors or Ikali, Medicine, and Elohim's Forever. I can't remember exactly which track it was. It was probably both of those tracks I listened to. It's a moment that I'll never forget. It's like one of those moments that just like stays seared into your brain, similar to the experience that I had with the HE400i paired with the Bryson. Anyway,
I think that's enough talk. It's time for the final exercise.
It's time for the final exercise.
Nah, I'm just kidding. So I'll leave links down below for all this stuff. I go into a lot more detail in my articles. Any updates to this will be in the articles, so definitely check back periodically as I update a lot of my blogs. That's about it for today, guys. Leave me some love down below, and don't forget to subscribe. If you like what I do and want to support the channel, hit that Patreon link down below. And with that,
check 1 2. Hope you enjoyed this review too. It was brought to you by Stu, who, me, the lyrical G, empirical dreams slide through like green. PC gaming, letting off steam, got bars for days like a prison inmate. A misdemeanor's fate, no debate when I wake up. Okay, start my day with a cup and I pray I don't faint. I'm a saint of the Most High God, of the Most High God.
I'm sorry, I can't concentrate sometimes with that guy up there running on his treadmill. Like, why can't you just go to the gym, dude? We have a free gym in this apartment complex, and he's just gonna put his freaking Nordic track right over top of my fan. Like, I'm paranoid he's gonna fall and like bust my head wide open. You know what the best part about recording these videos is? You guys don't know if I'm naked or not. Yo, dog, I heard you like amp DACs. We put 2 DACs inside your amp DAC and stack that amp. It's gonna draw power from your phone, and depending on the model of your phone, it will suck it dry. And depending on the model of your phone...
I think that's enough talk. It's time for the final exercise. Raiden, take Solidus down.
Think again. I'm through doing what I'm told.
Oh, really? Aren't you forgetting something?
If you die, my child dies.